Hi there and welcome to another exciting video. Over this weekend, I had a lot of fun reading a book of chosen poems from Oscar Wilde. That is the first book I finished for this week, and since it is a small one, I plan to finish another small one by the end of this week. Now that I talk about reading books, I realize that a lot of people have asked me how I developed a reading habit, which is why I've planned to cover my top 10 tips on how you can develop it too. Without building any further reference, let us get started. Tip number 1. Go to the internet and read about the books that come up as your top of the mind recall. Read about each one of those books. Read especially the summary and the plot. You could also go to websites that allow you to peek into their first chapter. Read the first line, paragraph, and page to see if the writing interests you. If the plot seems interesting, and the book has good positive reviews on the internet, pick that one up for reading. Once you know the characters and the plot of the book, reading it through along with the dialogues will be like watching a movie, the story of which you already know. You will be able to relate to the characters by mentally recreating the sequences as the story moves along. Once you are through the primary stages of the research, look for genres that interest you the most. A lot of people like reading romantic novels or thriller novels. Find out what genre do you like the most. Select books from only that one category. For reading something in romance, for example, you could pick up Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. For suspense and thrillers, you could pick The Hound of the Baskerville by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. For young adult fiction or children's books, you could pick up The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Hardy Boys, or Alice in Wonderland. You could pick up a series of books also, for example the Harry Potter series. So that's it for tip number 1. Tip number 2. Pick up the shortest one first. When I began reading, I took up books like Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. Such books I could finish in a little over a day. Over time, my reading speed increased. Based on your research and interests, pick up the ones that would take the least amount of time to complete. You could begin with a collection of short stories from, for example, Leo Tolstoy or Anton Chekhov. It could be a self-help book from Sadhguru, or it could be a standalone short fiction like To Be or Not to Be from Kurt Vonnegut. So that's it for the second tip. Let's look at the next tip now. Tip number 3. Sit with a tool. If you are reading from a physical book, like a paperback or a hardcover edition, sit with a paper and pencil or highlighter so that you can take a note of the difficult words, catchy phrases, and impactful sentences from the book. If you are reading an ebook edition, which is what I usually do, you could use the highlighter on the Kindle or a web-based or application-based dictionary for reference. I read mostly on either Apple Books or Kindle application. While highlighting, I use a different color for impactful sentences and a different one for unheard of words. These are 2 examples for your reference. When I am reading something on my laptop, I use notes to scribble everything that interests me. A lot of my posts and poems on my website have happened when I was reading a book. Let's look at the next tip now. Tip number 4. If you find reading boring or time consuming, you could opt for listening to books. You could subscribe to services from websites that allow you to listen to high quality audiobooks when you travel. Even YouTube has a lot of free audiobooks available, but the quality isn't that great. In fact, on some occasions, I found that the recording was incomplete, so the story ended abruptly. At times, you end up paying for a free service. Before we continue, a gentle reminder. If you have liked this video and would like to watch more such videos on writing, please subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Let's look at the next tip now. Tip number 5. This one is extremely important. I did this mistake a lot of times, and there are a lot of those around who commit the same mistake. We buy a book, and then even if we don't like the story or the writing style, we keep holding on to the book for countless reasons. There are times when we initially like a book, but after a couple of chapters, we find out that it isn't our kind. If that has ever happened to you, just put the book aside and jump on to the next one. Don't hold on to it because you made a commitment to finish reading it. It wouldn't help you in any way. Just put it aside and pick up the one that you really like. After all, you want the outcome to be peace of mind, not pieces of mind. Tip number 6. Get rid of that one social media app you think is not required in your life. Dedicate the time you would dedicate to that app to reading. One app less is one less botheration, believe me. You could also reduce 10 minutes from all social media apps and other such forms of distractions to dedicate that time for reading. This will work in combination with the next tip. Tip number 7. Every person is unique, much like their reading styles. Some people like reading in quiet places, while some like reading in crowded places. If you are someone who likes reading in coffee shops, ensure that you always carry a book there. Some people prefer listening to music while they read. I prefer a quiet place for reading. In fact, I have a set of preferences, such as the place where I sit to read, the time to read, the pages I read, the kind of books to read, the writing style of the author, tools that I carry with me when I read, and even the kind of drink I enjoy while reading the book at hand. So what are your set preferences? Tip number 8. Compete. Set a daily target for yourself. Apple Books has that capability. The first day you use the application, it sets a target of 5 minutes. It notifies when you accomplish that goal. Every next day, the target increases. You could set a similar target for yourself. Begin with 10 minutes and then increase it to as much as you can. A lazy Sunday in the lockdown could well be invested in a good book. Who knows, you might wake up to this book and in another moment, the dusk has already set in with its pinkish purple hue around. Tip number 9. Read translated version. I've realized that each language has its own unique approach when it comes to reaching from the pages into the hearts of the readers, and reading translated versions has helped me grasp those approaches. When I began writing, I was in my early schooling years, and since the school's library had quite an extensive collection, I resorted to issuing myself books that were in English and the other languages in India. So I read in English as much as I read in the translated versions. It helped me build context in episodes that I found were difficult to read and understand. Over time, it made a difference in my writing as well. Works like the world-famous adventures from Pustak Mahal, Khalil Gibran's The Prophet, or Ruskin Bond's The Room on the Roof taught me a lot about the different approaches in writing through their respective English and Hindi versions. Overall, it has been a solid learning experience. Let us look at the last tip now. Tip number 10. Set an expectation. Answer questions like, will you like to describe the events of the book to someone? What did you learn from the book? Will you like to share the learning? What impacted you the most? What surprised you the most? What would you list if you were to review the book? In finding answers to these questions, you'd be surprised at how much you've discovered and learned. Clear writing is clear thinking, and you can always learn from those who can think clearly, which is all the more a reason to pick the right book. I'm sure that these tips will come in handy when you choose what to read next. So that was it for today's video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, happy reading. If you've liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.